Here's the part that doesn't add up. A company can survive one unverifiable business line. Wirecard's entire growth story depended on it. In February 2019, Singapore police raided the offices of several Wirecard subsidiaries in the city-state as part of a fraud investigation into the company's Asian operations. Wirecard stock dropped sharply on the news, then partially recovered after the company issued a statement dismissing the raid as related to a minor internal issue rather than the systemic fraud investigators were actually circling. In hindsight, the raid wasn't a footnote. It was the first time a state authority, rather than a journalist or short seller, had physically walked into a Wirecard office looking for exactly the evidence that would surface publicly a year and a half later. The final blow came in June 2020. Wirecard's longtime external auditor, EY, refused to sign off on the 2019 financial statements. The reason? 1.9 billion euros supposedly sitting in trustee bank accounts in the Philippines, money that had appeared on Wirecard's balance sheet for years, could not be confirmed to exist. The Philippine banks named in Wirecard's documents came forward and said, plainly, they had never held those funds. Some of the supporting paperwork was later found to be forged outright. Within days, Wirecard admitted publicly that the 1.9 billion euros likely never existed at all. The company that had spent a decade calling its critics liars was now confirming their exact accusations, in its own words. Marcus Braun resigned as CEO and was arrested shortly after, facing charges of falsifying accounts and market manipulation. But it was Wirecard's chief operating officer, Jan Marsalek, who vanished completely, disappearing within days of the scandal breaking and remaining one of Europe's most wanted fugitives to this day. The market reaction was immediate and brutal. Wirecard stock, once worth more than 20 billion euros in total market value, lost over 90% of that value in days. Within weeks, the company filed for insolvency, one of the largest corporate collapses in modern German history. Thousands of employees lost their jobs. Investors, including large pension funds, lost billions. Marcus Braun faced trial in Germany on fraud and market manipulation charges, which he denied. As for Jan Marsalek, despite an Interpol red notice and years of investigation, he has never been located. Reports have placed him variously in the Philippines, Belarus, and Russia, though his exact whereabouts remain officially unknown. The fallout extended well beyond Wirecard itself. EY, the auditor that had signed off on Wirecard accounts year after year, faced lawsuit from investors and regulatory scrutiny over how a firm of its size and reputation could fail to independently verify billions of euros in supposedly existing bank accounts. Germany's financial regulator, BaFin, faced its own parliamentary inquiry, forced to explain publicly why it had spent years investigating journalists and short sellers instead of the company they were reporting on. The scandal ultimately contributed to a broader overhaul of German financial oversight, including new powers for regulators to directly examine listed companies' accounting rather than relying solely on external auditors. There's also a narrower, more uncomfortable lesson specific to this case. For years, Wirecard's defenders had a genuinely convenient explanation available whenever questions came up: a hostile press, jealous competitors, short sellers with a financial motive to talk the stock down. That explanation wasn't entirely implausible on its face, which is exactly what made it useful. Short sellers do sometimes exaggerate. Journalists do sometimes get stories wrong. Wirecard's leadership didn't need investors and regulators to fully believe the company was blameless. They only needed enough plausible doubt to keep the actual verification from happening for one more quarter and then another for the better part of a decade. What makes Wirecard remarkable isn't just the size of the fraud. It's how long it survived in plain sight. A major German public company was audited every single year for over a decade by one of the world's most respected accounting firms. It sat on a national stock index. Politicians pointed to it as proof Germany could compete in tech. And through all of it, the most basic question, does the money actually exist, went unanswered until outside journalists forced the issue years after the first warning signs appeared. The numbers always tell the story eventually. The question, as always, is who's still listening by then? Wirecard passed every audit for over a decade. If you want to understand how the next one hides, subscribe, because there's always a next one.